Let me start with a truth that sounds uncomfortable in a boardroom. Most change programs don't fail because the plan is weak. They fail because the people are not ready. And people not ready is rarely about incompetence. It's about psychology. It's about fear, often invisible, often unspoken. It's about identity. It's about trust. It's about the brain reacting to uncertainty like it's a threat. McKinsey has long cited that 70% of transformations fail to achieve their goals. But here's the twist. The 70% number is debated because failure is defined differently across studies, and many popular claims are repeated without consistent empirical measurement. So the headline isn't 70% fail. The headline is far more useful. Change is hard enough that if you ignore human behavior, your odds drop fast. Proshi's research makes this painfully clear. Projects with excellent change management are up to 7 times more likely to meet objectives than those with poor change management, which means if you're running transformation like it's a PowerPoint exercise, you're gambling with outcomes. Today, I want to offer a different lens, one that helps you and your teams grow through change, not just go through change. And I'm going to do it by busting few myths to begin with. Myth number 1, people resist change. The truth is that people resist loss, confusion, and humiliation. You've heard it 100 times. People resist change. But that statement is lazy. It makes employees sound stubborn. It frames resistance like a character flaw. The behavioral science view is sharper. People don't resist change. People resist what change does to them, because change threatens status, will I still matter? Certainty, what exactly is happening? Autonomy, do I have any control? Relatedness, am I safe with my team? Fairness, is this process just? That's the SCARF model, one of the most practical neuroscience-based frameworks for leadership. When SCARF is threatened, your people don't become difficult. They become human. And here's why that matters. When the brain perceives threat, it reallocates resources away from the prefrontal cortex, where reasoning, planning, and self-control live, towards survival responses. So in a change program, if people are anxious, you can't logic them into alignment. You don't defeat fear with more spreadsheets. You defeat fear with clarity, control, connection, and fairness. Therefore, your first job in change leadership is not to communicate the plan. Your first job is to lower the threat response so people can hear the plan. Here is myth number 2. If we announce the change clearly, buy-in will follow. The truth is that communication doesn't create commitment, but meaning does. Many organizations run change like this. They make an announcement, they explain, and they expect adoption. But employees don't adopt change because they understand it. They adopt change because it makes sense to them. And sense is not a memo. Sense is meaning. That's why William Bridges' transition model is so valuable. It separates change, an external event, from transition, an internal psychological process. Bridges says people move through 1. Endings, letting go. 2. Neutral zone, uncertainty and recalibration. 3. New beginnings, commitment to a new identity. Most companies announce the new beginning, while employees are still stuck grieving the ending. So people look like they are resisting, but they are actually processing loss. Here is your leadership move worth doing. Name the ending. Honor it. Don't rush it. Because what people are losing is rarely just a process. They're losing competence, comfort, identity, belonging. When you respect that, you earn trust. When you dismiss that, you fuel silent resistance. Myth number 3, pressure creates performance. The truth is, pressure without psychological safety creates silence, not speed. Let me tell you a corporate story that should haunt every executive. Nokia didn't lose because it lacked engineers or resources. It lost because fear infected the system. INSEAD's analysis points to shared fears. Middle managers afraid to speak up, top managers afraid of missing targets, creating inertia at a moment when truth-telling was essential. This is what organizational fear does. It doesn't make people lazy, it makes them quiet. And once people go quiet, the organization goes blind. That's why psychological safety is not a soft concept. It's a performance multiplier. Amy Edmondson defines it as a shared belief that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. In her foundational work, psychological safety is linked to learning behaviors in teams. This means if people can't speak honestly, change fails silently until it fails publicly. So here's the provocative thought. If you want speed, build safety. If you want innovation, reward truth. If you want change, remove fear. Myth number 4. Change is a strategy problem. But here is the fact. Change is a capability problem. Strategy is the easy part. The hard part is building the organizational muscle to adapt quickly, learn continuously, coordinate across silos, and keep people engaged while the ground moves under them. That's why Prosci's benchmarking repeatedly ranks active and visible sponsorship as the top contributor to successful change, cited far more often than other factors. Let's simplify that. Change doesn't succeed because the change team worked hard. Change succeeds because leaders showed up consistently, visibly, credibly. Not as narrators, but as role models. So when we think about change, what really means is what it really means to your people. It's not about managing change per se, but managing the meaning of it. To grow through change means 4 things, 4 C's. They are 1. Clarity. 2. Control. 3. Connection. 4. Credibility. Let's unpack each with tactical actions. 1. Clarity. Reduce uncertainty before you demand performance. Uncertainty is exhausting. In uncertain environments, rumors become facts, and anxiety becomes contagious. So leaders must overinvest in clarity. Clarity means what is changing and what is not changing. Why are we changing beyond slogans? What does success look like measurably? What happens next? This week, this month, this quarter. If you can't answer those questions, your people will fill the gaps with worst-case stories. What you need to do is to run a clarity audit. Ask employees to write anonymously. I understand why we are changing. Rate it from 1 to 10. I understand what changes in my work. Rate it from 1 to 10. I trust leadership's plan. Rate it from 1 to 10. Then don't defend the numbers. Diagnose them. 2. Control. Give autonomy where you can, and honesty where you can't. One of the fastest ways to reduce resistance is to increase autonomy. Even small choices reduce threat. In what order do we adopt new processes? What pilot group goes first? What metrics define early wins? What feedback loops exist? Control isn't always possible, but transparency is. When control isn't possible, give people this instead: clear decision rights, clear rationale, clear expectations. That is how you build fairness, a major scarf lever. 3. Connection. Win together or lose separately. Change exposes silos. One vertical blames another. One region hoards resources. One function says, "Not my job." This is where leaders must shift from my team performance to enterprise performance. Netflix's culture messaging emphasizes high alignment with responsibility for outcomes, including decision ownership and accountable captains for key decisions. You don't need Netflix's culture, but you do need the principle: high alignment, high ownership, low politics. Here is something practical you can do. During transformation, run weekly cross-functional blocker clinics. One rule: no blaming, only problem solving, because nothing kills change faster than vertical wars and politics. 4. Credibility. People don't follow plans, they follow leaders. This is where most transformations die. Leaders say, "We must change," but they keep rewarding old behaviors. They demand agility, but punish mistakes. They demand innovation, but micromanage decisions. Credibility is created when leadership behavior matches leadership messaging. And this is where growing through change becomes personal. If you're asking employees to change, first question to ask: have you changed? Let's look at 2 contrasting stories: fear-based change versus learning-based change. Take the case of Nokia. instead describes a culture where fear reduced honest upward communication, making it harder to respond decisively to disruption. This is not just a Nokia story, this is a universal warning. When leaders punish truth, they buy comfort today and bankruptcy tomorrow. A widely discussed element of Microsoft's turnaround under Satya Nadella was shifting culture toward a growth mindset, from know-it-alls to learn-it-alls. Whether you love Microsoft or not, the leadership lesson is profound. You don't scale transformation by forcing compliance. You scale transformation by changing what the organization believes is normal. Lou Gerstner famously emphasized that changing IBM's culture was central to its turnaround, capturing the idea that culture determines what gets rewarded and punished. That's the point. Culture isn't a poster. Culture is a pattern. And the pattern determines whether change grows or dies. Now let's talk about a brutal organizational truth. Most employees already know what they should do. They just don't do it consistently. Why? Because knowledge doesn't drive behavior. Systems plus emotions plus habits drive behavior. That's why individual change models like Proshi's ADKAR focus on stages people must move through: awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, reinforcement. This is not theory, it's operational. If your people have awareness but no desire, you get compliance. If they have knowledge but no ability, you get frustration. If you have ability but no reinforcement, you get relapse. So stop asking, did we communicate? Start asking, which ADKAR stage is breaking? Let me end with a question that will define your next transformation. When your people experience uncertainty, do they feel threatened or guided, controlled or empowered, alone or supported, judged or coached? Because that, more than your timeline, predicts adoption. Growing through change is not just about surviving disruption. It's about using disruption as a training ground to build a smarter culture, a stronger leadership bench, and a workforce that adapts without breaking. And if you do it right, change stops being something your people fear. It becomes something your people know how to lead.